Good Friday, everybody. And today we're going to talk World Cup soccer ratings. And no matter where you are in the world, it seems like everybody, no matter what time it is in their specific part of the world, seems to be able to find and enjoy this 2026 World Cup. And we've got some fun stuff here that we can talk about today about that. Let's begin with the fact, it's called the beautiful game. And if you ask the broadcasters of the 2026 World Cup, they would say, absolutely, it is the beautiful game. Because it doesn't matter whether you're watching it in the UK, the United States, Canada, or Australia. This tournament has driven some monster ratings. And I think that is really the story right now for the World Cup, is that it's been embraced from a broadcast standpoint like no other World Cup has been. Now, here in the United States, Fox, FS1, Tubi have been, the English language part of it all. The opening matches between the U.S. and Paraguay averaged 27.5 million viewers across those platforms. Now, let me give you an idea what that means. A 27.5 million viewers is equal to a playoff game in the National Football League. So for those of you in the United States, you understand that is an incredible rating. Okay. So that's been one thing that I don't think anybody expected. Now, the U.S. match against Bosnia-Herzegovina, which was on July the 1st, drew 24.4 million viewers and peaked at 31.8 million in the final moments of that game. All right. Meanwhile, while Mexico versus England in the round of 16 reached 21.74 million on Fox and 23.2 million on the Spanish language outlet Telemundo. So Telemundo and Peacock, which is Peacock is owned by NBC. Streaming has been critical to the success of the Mexican, the games out of Mexico and the Spanish language. Now, there is a bit of an interesting situation here. There's no beef yet, but make no mistake about the fact that Telemundo is actually siphoning away viewership from Fox. And how does that happen, right? Well, in a world where we now have what we call here in the United States cord cutting, where people have left the cable world and have entered the streaming world, Fox has only just started to do that. They've done Fox One. It's only got about 2 to 3 million subscribers at the moment. Telemundo, on the other hand, has much, much more, about 10 times that. And Telemundo's audience is approximately 25% of the audience that watch the games on Telemundo, streaming them in Spanish. Their number one language is English. So 25%, or a little bit more on occasion, who are watching the matches on Telemundo are English-speaking people who choose to stream the matches on Telemundo. Now, the only way that's going to change, or the only thing that changes, is the picture's the same. The picture, no matter where you are in the world, doesn't matter what you're watching, the 40 some odd cameras that are at each of these venues broadcasting these games is exactly the same picture. What happens is that fiber optically, they stream the actual raw feed, as we call it in the business, to Dallas, where the International Broadcast Center is. In Dallas, for instance, they put the Spanish graphics in. They put the Spanish, statistics, anything that's in Spanish or any other language that is not English, they put the graphics in there, and so it runs through there. Same thing for the BBC, ITV, TSN, CTV, all of those, they all put their graphics in Dallas, so that way they can put their stamp on on the broadcast. Okay, so that's the way the flow goes. There's about 2,000 people working in a convention center down in Dallas, where it's been taken over by world broadcasters. So that's the International Broadcast Center. So as I said before, we have had record numbers in the United States. So what does that mean over in the UK? Well, BBC and ITV has basically rewritten the UK story. Okay, over there, it's the split between the BBC and ITV has created multiple breakout moments. The opening match between England and Croatia peaked at 15.4 million viewers on ITV with an average of 14.2 million. English versus the DR Congo in the round of 16 reached 16.3 million on the BBC, the broadcaster's highest moment this year, and generated 10.4 million people who streamed it on the BBC iPlayer. Meanwhile, streaming has been a major driver in the UK. During the final week of group stages, the World Cup accounted for 34% of all streaming hours on BBC's iPlayer and on the ITVX login account, which means that more than 110 million streams in a single week were driven by World Cup kickoffs of English matches. Okay, so anytime England played, one in this particular time period, 110 million streams were taking place. Meanwhile, up in the Great White North, as we call it here in Canada, Canada has seen a record increase in World Cup numbers. They had 16.9 million unique Canadians watching some World Cup coverage on TSN, RDS, which is the French speaking broadcaster in Canada, CTV, which is the free over the air, which would be like Fox or BBC in the United States. Fox, obviously UK, it would be BBC. Novo and Crave. Now, Novo and Crave are streamers that carry TSN, RDS, and CTV. By July 5th, that number had reached 28.2 million, or roughly 69% of the entire population of the country of Canada was watching Canadian soccer teams play in the round of 16. Canada versus Morocco averaged 5.4 million viewers across Bell Media platforms, with a peak of 7.3 million and 11.7 million unique viewers. Now, that's streaming services, okay? So you figure right now that in the 16 games, the Canadians have watched more than 274 million hours of live matches, and that's up 150% over 2022. RDS, on the other hand, the French language network, carried the bulk, obviously, of the French language coverage. They played a central role in the results, especially for all Canada matches and major European matches. While exact RDS numbers are preliminary figures only, they're averaging approximately 75% more than they've ever reached before. And that's just right now with preliminary notes in. What's this mean on a global situation? Well, the 2026 World Cup proves that soccer remains a mass market force when the host nation and high-profile players are involved. Fox, Telemundo, ITV, BBC, TSN, Crave, and RDS all have delivered record or near record audiences, with streaming platforms having become the essential partners rather than supplements. This is the blueprint for the next cycle, and the host country matches, marquee teams, and cross-platform distribution now is the core of where the audience is, okay? So that's a story that I wrote today. You can find it on X at JW Media DC. And what does that mean? All right. Well, it means, for instance, in the United States, coming up in 2027, Netflix, which is a streaming only platform, you will not be able to watch it anywhere else but on Netflix in the United States, will be the 2027 Women's World Cup. Okay. That is really an amazing situation. So, from a streaming standpoint, streamers will be involved heavily in the 2030 series and 2034 series, which the rights will be coming up. And we'll get into that a little bit deeper later. But uh, you can look out for Netflix, you can look out for Amazon Prime Video, you can look out for Apple TV, and you can look out for YouTube to be major players in the bidding process for FIFA's TV rights. Now, that also can affect both Canada and the UK and Spain, because all of them are being combined in the next series of negotiations. So what that means is the United States and Canada and Spain, the UK, will be rolled into not one, but what I'm saying is that they will all be up in the 2030, 2036, I'm sorry, 2034 series, which means that you're going to have an opportunity, if you're a broadcaster, to bid on that. Now, there's all kinds of things that could happen. One thing, and we'll get into all this in more detail on Monday, but for right now, let's just take it from that standpoint. What we're going to be seeing is more and more people wanting, from a streaming standpoint, to be involved. So that means, for instance, in the United States, NBC Peacock could be a bidder. And that would make sense, because then NBC could be, one of the primary outlets. Streamer would be obviously Peacock. ESPN ABC would be an obvious bidder. Why? Because the Disney company owns ABC and they own ESPN. And so you've got a streamer and you've got a broadcaster. Fox, they haven't quite gotten with Fox 1 yet, up to any number, even close to Paramount or Peacock. So Fox is likely not to be as big a player in the coming cycle as they have been in the past. Apple, Apple Prime Video, which is Amazon, and Apple absolutely will be involved, because what they could do, should they want to do it, is they could sub-license the feeds to some broadcasters, but keep the streaming rights. So those are options there. The United States situation. The BBC, ITV, that might be something that we want to keep an eye on for DAZN. DAZN, of course, has been very active in Europe with regards to sports rights. So let's keep an eye out on DAZN if you're in Europe. As you guys log on here and join us, and we greatly appreciate that. What I'd like to know is where you're watching the matches. Are you watching it in the United States? If so, you streaming it, you're watching it on Fox, you're watching it on Telemundo. What's going on there? Same thing in Canada. What's going on from you guys? Is it, are you ITV people? Are you CTV people? Are you RDS? Where you're going on there? And of course, ITV and BBC over in England. One of the things I think is keeping the audience is the stars are there, right? You've got Mbappe from France. You've got Harry Kane from the UK. You've got, of course, Lionel Messi from Argentina. The big stars are there. Here in the U.S., we've probably never seen more soccer, as we call it here, than we've ever seen before. And that's because NBC and CBS have invested a great deal of money. NBC's invested their money in the Premier League, which has really taken off um, here in the United States, as well as the Champions League games have been very good on CBS and specifically on Paramount Plus. What's unique and interesting is back in the day, back maybe 15, 20 years ago, on Saturday mornings, kids would be watching cartoons here in the United States. That is not the case anymore. A very, very large portion of the audience is people under the age of 20. And if you average in the age up to 31, 32, you're looking at an audience who watch Saturday early morning and early afternoon, um, English Premier League games, that many kids are wearing jerseys from, Manchester United or Arsenal or Tottenham or, any of the major league teams in the Premiership. So it's become a phenomenon in the U.S. that, the theory of the case, and the MLS is doing, better. They're drawing better crowds than they've ever drawn. But the theory of the case is that fans in the United States don't like soccer. Well, that's not true. It's just that the United States, like every other country, wants to see the best of the best, right? So in many ways, David Stern, who was the brilliant commissioner of the National Basketball Association, back when they had the dream team go to Barcelona, David specifically said, when asked, what do you want to see in 5 or 10 years? Now, remember, that was the Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley basketball team. That was the all-star team. So when Barkley and all the gang were over there, the goal was not to say in 10 years, we want to see the U.S. continue to win gold medals. David's theory of the case was, we want to grow the game worldwide. So when asked about that question, about what do you want to see in 10 years, he goes, I want to see somebody beat us. Now, you would think, well, that was crazy. Well, no, it wasn't crazy. It built the sport to the point where, as you know, many of you who are sports fans, that most of the first round of the NBA draft last season was players from Europe. And so there we are, right? What are we doing in the United States from a soccer standpoint? We're trying to create players that are good enough to play in the Premier League, because that's where you get better. You get better when you play the best competition in the world. And right now, we are funneling some players to the Premier League, but we're not funneling enough. The people that are playing for the MLS, and again, I'm a fan of the MLS. There's some fantastic players in the MLS. There's no question about that. But you need names to draw. And that goes all the way back to my days in the 1970s, early 80s with the NASL. I mean, there was Pelé, there was Beckenbauer, there was Johan Cruyff, there was, of course, Giorgio Canaglia. There was Rodney Marsh and Derek Smethurst and a number of other players that were heavily involved with international name recognition. And they're playing in the U.S. and they drew crowds. Surprisingly so to some, the crowds that were being drawn in the 1970s to NASL games are, in some cases, twice the number audience that people are getting now for MLS games. And I understand Don Garber and the MLS and how they're playing this, and they're hoping, and hopefully they're right, that the 2026 World Cup will spur more and more players to be um, involved and want to play in European leagues and be good enough to play in European leagues, which they can then come back and play for, the United States. Right now, one of the top goalkeepers in the world plays for Japan, and you know he's an American. He just he felt that his chances were better to play in Mexico. I mean, I'm sorry, in Japan. Um, it's an interesting concept, and it's something we need to be. If you're a follower of the U.S. men's team, a follower of them, you're going to want to watch that dynamic and track it. Conversely, on the women's side, it's a whole different situation. On the women's side, here in the United States, you could easily argue that the NWSA, the I'm sorry, NW National Women's Soccer League. There we go, NWSL, um, is the best women's soccer league in the world. So, true to form, U.S. women produce better in World Cups than do the men. And it's largely because the competition in the women's professional league is much better than the MLS. So not only do you get to see the stars on the women's side on a regular basis here in the U.S., you're seeing some of the best stars from over in Europe and South America and the Far East coming here to play in the women's league. And I think that has helped tremendously in buoying the sport. Now, what we're going to get into, not as much today as we will be getting into it probably on Monday, Tuesday, something like that, is, who we're going to talk about the broadcasts. We're going to talk about who does the best job, not of the telecast part of it. As I said, that's all being done by the international group that handles all of the broadcasts, which is for here in the United States, it's NEP, the production company, also Cross Creek, and a number of other fine outlets that are putting together the technicians and camera people and directors and producers who are handling what you see on the matches themselves. What I'm going to talk about is the broadcasters who do the games, the pre and post game shows in the U.S., in Canada, and in the U.K., and how the broadcast works from there. So we'll see all of that in the not too distant future as we talk here. And seems as if we are frozen at the moment. Hang on a second, boys and girls. Be right back with you. Sorry for the technical difficulties there, folks. I lost my camera for a moment. What we were talking about before I lost the technical issue here was about technical aspects of what we're doing. Um, we're going to talk about more on Monday about the broadcast teams. As I said before, not about the actual broadcasts themselves, because again, everybody in the world is seeing the same video of the game. So you're everybody's seeing every camera angle, every replay, everything like that. Everything on that part is universal. What isn't universal, obviously, is the pregame shows, the halftime shows, the postgame shows. And what we're going to start getting into is who does it best, right? In each country. Um, how we've got a number of different broadcasters who have handled the pregame, postgame, halftime festivities, and who does it the best in each country. And I want your suggestions. I want when you're watching the broadcast, who is it that you want to see? Who makes you um, feel as if they understand the game and is intelligent enough to or entertaining enough to bring you the best of the commentary. And I think that that's going to be fun when we start breaking that down. Um, I watch the games on Fox, Telemundo here in the U.S. I also have access to and watch uh, TSN, who is the primary, even though CTV and Crave share it, the broadcasters are TSN broadcasters. So that's how that works in Canada. Obviously, RDS is in French, and so they have their own set of announcers. Over in the UK, of course, we know that there's ITV. ITV, by the way, has a phenomenal um, New York setup, which is in Brooklyn. You can see in the background there everything from the Statue of Liberty all the way across through to Manhattan. So it's a lovely situation there. Meanwhile, BBC has taken to do a really nice job on beefing up their studio with all kinds of fun graphics, and they've really spent a lot of money on putting together a very high tech uh, situation there, where they do a lot of fun statistical things and social media things, and all kinds of different things that they have not been able to do with regard to their other events. So I think the BBC's pulled out all the stops for World Cup, and they have a nice studio set up over there. ITV, as I said, they're doing the majority of ITV stuff is being done from the New York broadcast center that they have in Brooklyn, and that's the way it works there. If you have gotten to see anything with TSN, they have outstanding broadcast center in Vancouver overlooking the sound there, and it's really beautiful in that regard. Most of what we see for the U.S. is done from Fox's um, Stage 6 on the Fox TV lot in Los Angeles. So that's a studio in Los Angeles. Obviously, BBC and ITV and the U.S. broadcasters have on-site broadcast areas. So they do that, some on-site, on-camera work. But the majority of the pregame, postgame, halftime stuff is all done from studios outside of the venues, because it just is not cost effective to do it on site when you have so many different venues. So let's take a quick look at what you're going to be seeing today on World Cup. And of course, we know that Spain is lurking there today at 3 o'clock Eastern time. That's 3 o'clock Eastern time, which would be, of course, 8 o'clock prime time in the UK, and of course that would also make it 9 o'clock in the rest of most of Europe. Spain and Belgium today, so that game will be the game that you'll be watching in about 3 or 4 hours, depending upon where you are. And if you're in the United States and you're out on the West Coast, it's a noon game. So we're covering a lot of different time zones here as we move on. Now tomorrow, I know a lot of you, and probably most most of the folks listening to this and watching it are going to be watching Norway and England, and that's a 5 o'clock start. Okay, 5 o'clock start in the United States Eastern Time Zone. That game's going to be played in Miami. The heat down there in Miami is going to be oppressive. It's not going to be as bad as we've had some triple-digit temperatures here in the United States over the past few weeks, which you all know. But it's always warm in Miami this time of the year. There's also the very good strong chance there might even be some rain and some showers down there. So tomorrow's Norway England game, which I'm sure is going to be, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that ratings wise, the Norway England game might be the highest rated game that we have seen so far out of any of the non-home team games. So in other words, meaning the Norway England game in the United States, Canada, and Mexico is likely to be the highest rated game. And I say that because there's been so much, done about it, written about it. Again, Chris Wheatley and Sean Miller and all that, the gang, they do an outstanding job. I highly recommend that you read their work. They do a super job of setting this all up. But I do think that game tomorrow is going to be a real outstanding battle, and one which, without question, is going to be a ratings monster. So keep an eye out for that one tomorrow. Norway against England, and as I said, that's going to be something that we're all going to want to sit down and watch tomorrow. It's going to be a ratings monster. We do know that also tomorrow that we're going to get a later game, and that's Argentina and Switzerland. Lionel Messi gets his opportunity. Now, 9 p.m. our time puts a difficult time situation. If you're a fan over in Europe, you're going to be up all night watching these two games. So yeah, again, tomorrow, quarterfinal, first one up, the doubleheaders at 5 o'clock, Norway, England, and then followed that by Argentina, Switzerland. Yesterday, we saw France beat Monaco. Many of you got to see Mbappe's amazing goal that he did. It was phenomenal. It was a bend around, the Moroccan players, and the guy is just amazing. We're going to see some stars. Again, as I said when I opened the show, the stars are out in the World Cup, and they are ready, and the fans are ready to embrace it and have fun with it and enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to it. I do think this is going to be a fun weekend, no questions about it. And I do want to know where you're watching the games, who you think is your favorite broadcasters, because as I said on Monday, we're going to focus on the broadcast teams for the opens and halftimes and post-game shows, and really talk in depth about who does the best job. I'll be working over the weekend watching those games and making my own notes and letting you know what we think here. And I'm sure you guys will be sitting there and either liking or not liking what you hear from your broadcasters in the local area. So I do want to hear from you. I do want, as the graphic below says, if you like what we're doing, please take us a moment. It doesn't cost you anything. Subscribe, hit the bell, and like us. And by all means, feel free to leave comments because we will answer them. So again, today we've got the game coming up with Spain, and tomorrow, of course, Norway, England, and Argentina playing after that one. So a lot of good soccer action. Again, follow Chris Wheatley, follow Sean Miller. They will be doing shows here, and they also, of course, cover every bit of the World Cup. They're a good follow. All of the information on both Sean and Chris and what my column on the ratings is in the show box below. So here, if you're watching us on YouTube, you will be able to read the column in the show box below, and you also have the information on how to follow Chris and how to follow Sean in that show note. So we've had a lot of fun today talking about ratings, and Monday we're going to be talking about the broadcasters themselves. Later in the week, we'll have some guests on to talk about what the future may bring from a TV standpoint. Are we going to be seeing a 2030 and a 2034 World Cup that is streaming dominant, as it seems like the world is heading in that direction, and plenty of other World Cup related, TV related things coming up over the next couple of weeks. So without any question, we very much enjoyed that. We also will talk a little bit about the baseball all-star game and the home run hitting contest, because Netflix is exclusive home for Monday's home run derby, which is always a fun skills situation from that standpoint. So we talk worldwide streaming and worldwide broadcasting right here. And we hope that you continue to join us, and we will be talking about a great deal of World Cup soccer all the way through the remainder of the tournament. And then out of that, we'll certainly keep track of what's going on from the leagues and the broadcast situations for each of the European leagues, the MLS, of course, and we'll have some of the fine broadcasters who work on those games as guests. So stay with us and follow Chris, follow Sean, follow me, and we'll keep you updated on all of it. I hope that you have a wonderful weekend, everybody. And again, the focus on the games. You want to follow Chris and Sean. They're going to give you the in-depth coverage of it. I'm here to tell you where to watch it, how to watch it, and want your feedback on who you think does the best job in each of your respective countries and where you watch your content. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And we will be back again on Monday to talk more about World Cup. And until then, have a wonderful, safe weekend.